The Repulsor Executioner is an upgunned variant of the Repulsor tank fielded by the Primaris Space Marines. It is, by no exaggerations, one of the most armed tanks the Space Marines have ever fielded, and probably one of the most armed tanks in all of 40k. Hello everybody, my name is Spoons Rattling, coming at you with a special late-night recording covering the Repulsor Executioner, the supreme gun tank of the Primaris Marines, with I guess the exception of the Astrius. So, the Repulsor Executioner comes in at 220 points. It has the standard Repulsor profile, movement 10 inches, toughness 12, 3 plus saves, 16 wounds, leadership 6 plus, and OC 5. This is a very solid stat line, and is decently tough, though its save is a little disappointing. Has a lot of ranged weapons. The Onslaught Gatling Cannon is mounted on the turret, has devastating wounds, 12 attacks, hits on 3s, 24-inch range, strength 6, AP 0, and damage 1. A very solid anti-light infantry killer, good for killing things like guardsmen. Complementing that is the Repulsor Defensive Array, 18 attacks, hit on 3s at 24-inch range, strength 4, AP 0, and damage 1. Again, same second verse, same as the first, good for killing guardsmen, and pairs quite well with the Gatling Cannon. It can take an Icarus Rocket Pod, which is anti-fly 2+, D3 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 8, AP 1, and damage 2. Fairly standard marine killing, and is just a solid profile to have in general, especially when fly things are around. It can also take a Twin Heavy Stubber in its place, which is anti-fly 4+, twin-linked, rapid-fire 3 attacks that hit on 3s, 36-inch range, strength 4, AP 0, and damage 1. The twin heavy bolter is twin sustained hits 1, 3 attacks that hit on 3s, 36-inch range, strength 5, AP 1, and damage 2. Even more light infantry killing. Pairs well with Gatling Cannon, of course. Then we come to the main turret weapon, which is the Heavy Laser Destroyer, or Macroplasma. The Heavy Laser Destroyer is heavy, 2 attacks that hit on 3s, at 72-inch range, strength 16, AP 4, and damage D6 plus 4. If you're a vehicle, you certainly don't want to get hit by this. It's an extremely damaging weapon, and really appreciates the Oath of Moment buff. Or you can swap it out for the Macroplasma Incinerator, which has Blast, D6 plus 1 attacks that hit on 3s at 36-inch range, strength 8, AP 3, and damage 2. Even more anti-infantry killing, and is also solid against light vehicles. Overcharging, of course, gives you strength 9, AP 4, and damage 3. Very solid buff. Both of these are very solid weapon profiles, though I'd say overall I prefer the Laser Destroyer just because it adds something that the other weapons don't already do relatively well. In terms of melee weapons, it's unimpressive, just armored hull, 6 attacks, hit on 4s, strength 8, AP 0, and damage 1. It of course has deadly demise D6 given its size, and its ability is fairly so-so. Executioner is when you are attacking an enemy unit that is below half strength, you add 1 to the hit roll. Now this is a solid buff, though it isn't the most impactful. If you're using the Heavy Laser Destroyer, you might be getting that anyways, and when you're attacking something below half strength, they'll usually be close to death anyways. Though I guess it could come in handy if you're fighting something with an immense amount of wounds, say a enemy Stompa, which this thing would be quite efficient against actually. Now, cycling back, of course you will want to take the Icarus Rocket Pod and Twin Heavy Stubber, or the Icarus Rocket Pod and the twin top-mounted Heavy Stubber. This is just to add even more anti-infantry to everything. This thing really does pack a fearsome punch against just about every target, though against things like Terminators it won't be the most effective unless you bring the Macroplasma, which trades off the Laser Destroyer's vehicle damage for being more efficient against targets like Terminators. I suppose it depends on what's more prevalent in your local meta. Anyways, I'd say that overall this is a very solid stat line as well as weapon lineup, unsurprisingly. For 220 points it doesn't get much better. In terms of its best use, we're going to cover that now. The Repulsor very much functions as the ultimate gun tank for the Space Marines. Compared to the Land Raider, it's not quite as tough, but it does pack a lot more of a punch, but also trades off its transport space. And covering transport space, I do believe that it is somewhat dangerous to bring this thing super close to enemy lines to deliver things like aggressors, where I prefer to fill its cargo bay with some assault intercessors or something similar, mainly because they can deal with the things that might give this thing trouble were it to get charged, though its large amount of anti-infantry fire means it won't get tied up by things like Guardsmen or Gretchen too efficiently. Though I do like assault intercessors just because they're flexible and they're general purpose enough, as well as having high OC. In terms of its weapons, it's of course the flagship tank of the Space Marines. It's very efficient. It has a lot of weapons, and though I think both choices are very good, and the plasma cannon might even be slightly better, I in general prefer the Heavy Laser Destroyer. And that plays into how I think it's best to use this thing. I'd say that it's best to move it up to sort of the back of the midfield, just outside your deployment zone, where you can get as many good line of sights as possible. Then, if you are using the Heavy Laser Destroyer, try and set up shop and just aim at the Oath of Moment target and absolutely annihilate them with that Laser Destroyer. Or if you're using the Plasma Cannon, you can probably play a bit more aggressively, though do be aware you can't fire the Plasma Cannon in melee, which could result to some sticky situations where you get quite tied up. As I mentioned, I do think its best role is fire support, and I wouldn't focus too much on its transport. I think Land Raiders and its Repulsor normal cousin is a much better transport for things like Terminators or aggressors, given this thing's much smaller size. Again, Assault Intercessors, I think, make a very good choice of something to transport in this, as it's only 6 spots, and even though it would be good for something like Blade Guard, it unfortunately can't fit a character. Anyways, that about covers our review of the Repulsor Executioner. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.